Hi everyone, welcome or welcome back to my channel. So I was thinking about what to make a video about today, and I remembered that there was a bunch of old videos that I had and I could just remake them. So that's what I've been doing currently. And the video that I'm remaking today, interestingly, I've just tweaked it a little bit, because the original concept was talking about Lord Shiva and death, the concept of death, and how he kind of fits into that whole, narrative of cycles ending and things like that. But today we're just looking at different lessons in the Shiva Puranam. I read the first part of the Shiva Puranam a while back, and when I was reading it, I made some notes. So if you ever see me looking down, it's because I have my notebooks and I'm just reading the notes that I wrote. So one of the first things that came to my mind and I think is very interesting to understand is the sameness of Shiva and Om. One of the things that was coming to me is that the importance of Om and that mantra and how powerful just that one syllable is. It's the first sound of creation, like it's the sound of the universe, and that sound, that syllable, is synonymous with Lord Shiva, which is said in the Shiva Puranam. So in the Shiva Puranam, it says Devi in the form of Bindu, which is like, if you've ever seen Bindu, have you ever seen like a yantra? There's like a little dot in the center of it. That's its center is the Bindu. So goddess in the form of Bindu is the mother, and Shiva in the form of Nādā is the father. So Nādā is vibration. It is that pure vibration. What is the Om? The thing about the syllable Om is that the properties it carries. If you guys aren't familiar with the story of Kala and how he came about, then I'm going to share with you now, because it also leans into this. So in Devaloka, Lord Vishnu and Lord Brahma are having a quarrel about which of the two is more powerful. Argument, it escalates and becomes like this great battle. So while they're battling, all the other devas, they run to Kailasa, they go to Lord Shiva, and they express their concerns about this conflict. Lord Shiva decides he's gonna sort this out. Lord Shiva goes to the place where they're battling, and he proposes this way for them to get to the bottom of this and stop arguing. He transforms himself into like a beam of light and says, if you can find the start of this this light, then that determines which one is more powerful. So they both search. Lord Brahma goes up to look for the top, and then Lord Vishnu goes down to look for the source of the light. So they both come back to to meet, and Lord Vishnu admits that he did not find it. Now Lord Brahma decides to tell Lord Vishnu that he found the start of the light. All this while Lord Shiva can still hear and see what's going on. So he becomes quite angered by this lie, because obviously he didn't find the start of the light. From this column emerges Kala, which is like this fierce rupam of Lord Shiva, and he has a sword. He cuts off one of Lord Rama's heads in response to this, but he was pleased with Lord Vishnu's honesty, so he decided that he will be worshipped alongside Lord Shiva, which is like, you have like Shaivas, Vaishnavas. The reason why I'm telling this story is because after all of this transpires, Lord Shiva says to Lord Vishnu and Lord Brahma that, I don't remember the exact quote, but it was something like, your delusion is a result of not meditating upon the omkara. Meditating or chanting this Om mantra, it gives you mental clarity to focus the mind. It's a very, very powerful thing. It's like, and the more you do, the more you chant it, the more you're connecting to that primordial vibration. I did want to speak about also is, like I was saying, the omkara represents nirguna Brahman, which means without form. Nirgun is without a form. But knowing that the omkara is synonymous with Lord Shiva, going back to the Shiva Puranam, it says in there that, Lord Shiva is the only deity that is both nirgun and Shaguna. Shaguna means with form. Speaking of Shaguna Shiva, let's go into the form of Lord Shiva then. In the Shiva Purana, it says, this is describing Panchamukha Shiva. So it says 5 faces and 3 eyes, the crescent moon on his forehead. He wore matted hair, he was white complexioned and had white eyes. His body had been dusted with ashes. He had 10 arms and his neck was blue in color. He was bedecked with ornaments. He was very handsome with respect to every limb. 3 ash lines marked his forehead. That was a description of Panchamukha Shiva. That's what was mentioning the 5 faces. Pancha being 5, Mukha being face. which is like what you would say like the form of Sada Shiva, you know. Sada means like always or ever pervading, you know. As you can see, this is how, you know, Lord Shiva is generally presented. You know, you have the Trishul, 3 eyes always, sometimes blue skin or otherwise blue throat, Damaru, Tristram, the moon, of course, he's Chandra Shekhara, Rudrakshas as well. So the form of Shiva is very, very interesting. A lot of the things that we see in the way that he's presenting is like reminding us to be like detached. There are some stories about like people wonder like why doesn't he like gold, but it's not that he doesn't like gold, it's more like he doesn't like he's not attached to those kind of things. Shall have the cooperation of Kali, the part of my beloved, the greatest of the great, and shall carry out the excellent activity of dissolution in the form of Rudra. So this is another interesting thing. You know, when often people talk about Lord Shiva and they say Shiva the destroyer, it's not incorrect to say, but this passage made me realize, you know, that destruction is carried out in the form of Rudra, which is why anything to do with you know, destruction or the destruction of ego or ignorance, we often say Rudra or chant Rudra. Even Rudraksha, you know, it's not like Shivaksha, which I learned somewhere that, you know, it's the same kind of thing. Rudrakshas, when you wear them, it helps to, you know, to destroy the like negative energies that's coming towards you, you know, like they protect you from it. Another thing that comes to my mind when I'm talking about the Om, which I forgot to mention, was the omkara mantra. Actually, the first part of the Sadakshara Stotram is the omkara mantra. So, you know, from the Omkaram Bindu Samyuktam, that whole part is the whole omkara mantra. It can be useful to listen to and meditate on as you connect with Lord Shiva and, you know, bring in peace of mind. And another thing in the Shiva Purana is mentioned is Bhakti, you know. So I'm going to read what I wrote. Bhakti is generated by worship and it gives birth to knowledge. Knowledge leads to perfect knowledge and realization of the supreme Brahman. When there is perfect knowledge, differentiation cease altogether. So this idea that, you know, the more you are immersed in your bhakti, which is your loving devotion of God, you will gain the knowledge that, you know, aham brahmasmi or shivoham, you know, whatever you want to say, that, you know, I am not different from this world. Brahman, or the supreme consciousness, lives within all of us, lives within everything, but everything is Brahman. This chapter is narrated by Lord Brahma. So it says, Brahma said, I shall explain a mode of worship which there is no better and which is conducive to the achievement of all happiness and cherished dreams. Getting up in the Brahma Muhurta between 3:30 a.m. and 5:30 a.m. within an hour before dawn, one shall remember Shiva accompanied by Parvati. With palms joined in great devotion and head bent down, he shall offer prayers. So, and then there's a prayer written there. So it's basically just talking about doing Shiva Puja in the mornings, you know, between the Brahma Muhurtam. If you can make it a habit to wake up in the Brahma Muhurtam and pray, can you do to, you know, connect more with that form of Shiva, you know? So you can do Shaguna meditation. Shaguna meditations are extremely beneficial, especially if you're a beginner in your path or in sadhana or anything. But Shaguna meditations is basically just visualizing the deity's form. Each deity has attributes. They have, you know, things that they hold. They have the way that they look, the way they present. So, for example, if you was to visualize the form of Lord Ganesha, you would see, okay, what he's holding, like a lotus flower, an axe. You would see his elephant head, you would see the gold. So in a Shaguna meditation, what you do is you look at, in your mind's eye, the form of the deity, and you go to each attribute and you focus on it for a few seconds. And then, you know, you go down all the way. You can do it about 5 times, 3 to 5 times. So with Lord Shiva, really helping you develop communion with Lord Shiva and allows you to surrender to his grace and experience deep peace and transformation. So what you would do, again, you would take the form of Lord Shiva. You can also do the meditation with a picture. You don't have to do it completely like with your eyes closed visualizing. If you have a picture, like any of these type of pictures or just one that shows the form, you can look at each attribute over and over again, you know, even think about what they're representing, but just really surrender. This meditation specifically, everything I said just now, so you view the attributes and think of his attributes such as omnipresence, omnipotence, and omniscience. Feel the sattvic qualities from the deva flow towards you and feel that you possess sattvic qualities. Concentrate on the murti and repeat his name and think of his attributes like bliss, radiance, love, etc. gazing at his picture all the while. And imagine or visualize him in the lotus of your heart, or the Anahata chakra, or between your eyebrows in the Agya chakra, and in either of them see a light, see his feet, and offer your salutations. This meditation practice is very helpful in, you know, engaging a communion with the deity. And it's not just for Lord Shiva. You can do it with your Ishtadeva, whoever that may be, if it's Mahakali, if it's Lord Vishnu, whoever. Another thing I will say about that meditation is I feel like meditation is such a hard thing to sometimes really pinpoint. You know, people just say, oh, just meditate. You know, you can feel like, okay, but what does that mean? Like, am I just sitting here just with my eyes closed thinking about nothing, or just doing nothing? So this practice is very helpful. If you're ever anxious, or if you're ever worried, or if you're ever sad or anything, you can just visualize or look at your murti and you just keep your focus on the deity, reminding yourself that yes, they are within you. So in the Rudra Samhita chapter 1, it's like a little prayer, and it's very interesting. So it kind of talks about what I was saying before about him being, you know, Nirguna and Shaguna, but it's also saying how he's within and without the Maya at the same time. So it says, I bow down to Shiva, the consort of Gauri, the sole cause of the origin, sustenance, and dissolution of the universe, who has understood reality, who is of endless renown, who is the support of Maya, but is free from its influence, whose form is incomprehensible, who is unsullied, who is perfect knowledge itself. Continues on to say, I salute to Shiva, who is prior to Prakriti, who is calm and tranquil, the only excellent Purusha, who created this visible universe, and who stays both within and without. The last part of it, I salute Shiva, of unmanifest form, who having extended himself by way of creation, stands in the middle of it. Wow. The worlds move around him like iron filings around the magnet. Really always talking about the nature of Shiva and how vast this being is. I hope you learned a thing or two from this video. Hara Hara Mahadeva. See you in the next one.